Hello, everybody. George is not in today, but I have my camera on for probably the first time I've ever done one of these. I'm usually just in the background, but Alec and I are here with Brandi Bonds. Before we get started, we're going to do our usual housekeeping. So let me just share my screen really quick. So we've got here MSP Community Minds, which, as a former teacher, I could tell you that these educational sessions are exactly what you are looking for. It is a small, intimate environment. You're engaged with the instructor. And as you can see down here, we have a really great list of educators and topics. So if you are in Denver, if you're not in Denver, come on down. We're going to be there from September 25th to 26th. We've got a great agenda here and lots of panels for everyone to watch as well. So come on down. If you can only come for one day, that works. Both days is better, but you get to pick which workshops that you go to. Death by PowerPoint, that's over. So come on down. And disclaimer, there is a fee when you are registering, but we give that back to you in full when you do attend the conference. So we hope to see you there. It's a great opportunity. And of course, I think we are most known for our block parties. We have, as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more coming up in the second half of 2024. Our next one is going to be in Sydney, Australia, after day 1 of IT Nation Sydney. So you have the details here, August 21st. It is literally a 4-minute walk from the event venue to Cargo Bar, which is right on the water. Sick views, great time, drinks, food. Honestly, you don't want to miss it. And after that, we'll have our Beyond Party, DadoCon, Orlando, with the big band. So if you didn't vote for a band, go to our LinkedIn page, and also another Sydney event at the end of the year. So lots going on. And we got our community offers page, which has all the offers from our community. If you want to see previous sessions, we've got them up here, and you will be able to find Brandi's here by the end of the day, which will also be on YouTube and Spotify. If you are interested in possibly sponsoring one of our parties, check out this page, or you could just reach out directly to Alec or myself. So that is that. And we have got today. And now I can't unshare my screen.
Well, while you're on sharing that, I'm just going to quickly add in the spirit behind Community Minds was pretty cool. We'd done a bus tour for a number of years, and Brandi, obviously we all went through this, right? The world stopped, and we hear so often that MSPs fuel their growth through the hallway chats. The sessions are great, but a lot of times they're finding the I bumped into Brandi, and she gave me 3 KPIs I just wasn't tracking yet in my business. And I went back and I started diving into those, and it helped me turn my business around. I mean, I hear those stories all the time, and that was immediately ripped out of their businesses and out of their growth plans. And all of a sudden, you're trying to fumble through a Facebook group to get those same conversations going. And it's just not the same. So we brought a bus out from the parking lot. It was parked for the rest of COVID because bands were not using any sort of tour buses. We went building to building on larger MSPs that were nice enough to host us. And we held a really great event that allowed some of that hallway chat to come back. As things started to open up again, we said, is there a next evolution of this? Do we keep going with the bus? Do we partner up with another event? And what we ended up deciding on was we let the MSPs decide. Like many of the things we've done with MSP Initiative, we said to them, what would be the most valuable thing we could do for you? And they said, well, we go to a lot of events and they're great and their sessions are really nice, but we go home with not really an idea of how to execute them. We may go home and say, a sales program could change my business, or I haven't really dove into compliance and I really need to, because clearly compliance is the next big thing. And they go home and they Google what's step 1 on starting a compliance arm of my MSP, and good luck with those results. Our goal was, let's outline this for you. Let's give you step 1. Let's go step 1 all the way through execution. And that's our goal with every one of these sessions. So there's 8 educators. You get to pick between them You got multiple sessions. You got 2 sessions each day, so you will get to attend 4 of them. Meaning, if you attend both, the East and West Coast shows, you'll see all 8 educational sessions, which I truly believe will impact your business. I got a little sneak peek of some of Brandy's content before we started this, and I just have to say we've got to be in touch with Brandy for next year because they are doing some very, very cool stuff. And without any further ado, I'm gonna let her introduce herself. Let's jump into a little bit about Next Level Now, what you guys are doing, and jump in there, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Brandi Bonds, and I am the managing partner of Next Level Now. We basically go into IT companies. It's one of our specialties, which we have 2 micro niches, and MSP IT is our largest. And we go in and we do transformational financial leadership. So a lot of people are like, what does that mean? Well, what it means is we help businesses meet their goals and initiatives using financial data and operational data to help drive decision making. So we love it. We love what we do. And we get excited when we see the light bulbs or the aha moments with our clients, and everything we do is about education to help guide these organizations to sustain with us or without us. So providing the tools and the resources and the necessary templates and benchmarks and KPIs to know how to differentiate yourself in the market and how to make sure that you are driving towards best of class in the market.
I love it. No, that's it's very much needed. We've always joked that a majority of this industry, right? Nobody sat in your junior year of high school and said, "Hey, another great career is that you could be an MSP." Right? Well, whenever anybody talked about tech in those days, it was you could be you could be a developer.
Programmer.
You could exactly. You can work on hardware, networker. So that was about as far as they got into it. Nobody ever said, well, you could support IT for businesses and make really great living doing it. Everyone stumbled into that, or you knew someone who had done it, or you knew someone who was leaving one. So it's a lot of the accidental entrepreneur, right? Somebody who worked at another company and said, I could probably do this better than I'm seeing it done right now where I am, or I'm doing this for an enterprise business, and I bet I could do this for small, medium businesses because I've been doing a little bit of that on the side. And next thing you know, it's your wife waking up one day and saying, "Hey, this is more than a side hobby now, and it's time to fully make
Yeah.
this a business and start paying taxes against it and everything else." Um, that's really, really, really well needed. So that was one of the things I got very excited about this session. Why don't you tell us a little bit about where you came from? Like, what is your background? How did you
Yeah.
find this niche that we all live in?
Yeah. So my background, I came from a consulting firm where I was the CFO. And what we did is provide IT services and C-suite placement for hospitals.
Very
And
nice.
watching that service, and it's different than the MSP model, but just watching how that was delivered at that enterprise level, I got excited about it. So when I joined Next Level about 10 years ago, and we started picking up clients and we had our IT clients, I knew the verbiage, I knew how to work, I knew what the metrics were. It's a professional services business. I knew recurring revenue versus hourly fixed. So we said, you know what? We know the technology, we know the verbiage, we know how to help drive change in this. And we said, let's give it a go. And here we are 10 years later. And we now are partnered with Service Leadership and Sleek and really helping drive businesses through their change initiatives, whether it be to grow, get profitable, figure out their business and what their levers are in their business, what's going to drive the most profitability, how many people should I have, things of that nature. Or I want to sell my business or acquire a business. How do I do that? So it's exciting work because it has real meaningful outcomes. We can see
Absolutely.
with the smaller to mid-size organizations, we have impact. And I saw that more with Next Level than I had in my previous firm, And that's why we like that small, medium size. We like to be nimble and say, no, that's not working. Let's try this. Let's pivot, see how that works. And we have the ability to be able to do that.
No, definitely. I mean, there's something about that agility of a smaller company. That not too many cooks in the kitchen yet, and you can definitely make changes a little bit faster.
Yep.
You hit on something there with service leadership. I was going to ask you. Obviously, there's a lot of peer groups out there, and everyone kind of has their own alignment in terms of
Yep.
SLI. So, do you work really well alongside those? Do you find you work better
Yeah.
without non-peer group members? Do you think you can help them more? I guess where did that all fall?
Yeah, so we are Sleek certified. We have
Okay.
worked with SLI, just fell into it about 9 years ago with one of our IT clients that we worked with that said, oh, I found this peer group. We're like, okay, great. I like service leadership and the Sleek methodology because it's tangible. And if you follow Sleek, which is a little bit more than service leadership, it helps you drive in all points of your business, because financial success, I can't say it never comes from finance. There are pieces of finance to help make you more successful, but it's your business. It could be your sales, it could be your operations, it's how you're handling customers, how you're billing customers, how you're billing your contracts, what's your technology stack, and your management of all of that and your processes around that. The other group that we use a lot is actually Traction, which is an EOS model. So those two really, they just give an action or a roadmap for us to be able to help demonstrate and drive our customers where we need them to go.
Love
So,
that. No, I'm a big fan of Traction. I've been in a couple of Traction organizations, and it's a really great method to make sure everyone's moving forward, right? And
yeah,
I always loved Rocket Fuel, and
yep.
understanding kind of where you fall in the organization. Those were always great for me.
Yeah. And what we find in most customers, if they're like, oh, I'm not following any of that, we run it on the back end and manage it the same way, because it helps keep us focused on where we're trying to get to. So we're a
Yep,
little
makes
bit
sense.
different over here. We don't focus on hours at all. So that is our one contra to the IT industry. We have no hours. There are no hours at Next Level. We focus
Okay.
on outcomes and deliverables. We want to help meet, and we'll do whatever it takes to help you meet your goal and objectives. So if it's to increase profitability, we say, yep, we'll do that. Here's what it's going to cost every month, and we just do it.
Love that. Okay, very nice.
So I was
So,
wondering, what's your favorite
okay.
book? Sorry,
Oh no,
some
please go ahead.
two hosts will just what's your favorite book for business growth? Do you have one or a recommendation?
Oh, gosh. Well, let me look at my library, which is so I like a lot of Patrick Lencioni books, because it's about being honest, being authentic, and we like to say throwing the elephant in the room, because most business problems center around a problem that no one wants to address or solve. So I would say Patrick Lencioni is probably my favorite. Yeah, that's what's in my book. And then the Traction books, I'm looking at my bookshelf over here, and that's usually an Influence Without Authority, which sounds weird, but because of the business we're in, we are hired as CFOs to go in and transform these organizations, but we really don't have the authority because we're outside contractors. So learning how to take that authority through influencing, through right decisions, and a path of it always stems to communication, education, and training, and then you can do it.
I like that though, because I mean, similar to what you're doing, right? You're coming into the organization and
Yeah.
you're asking for a seat at that table of the leadership decisions, really, to be able to be impactful in the organization. As an MSP, you need to be doing the same thing, Right? You need to be approaching
Yes.
that table and asking for that table as, you're not CFO, you're CTO. You need to wear that hat.
Yes.
We talk all the time about breaking away from the person they call when the keyboard breaks. Instead we
That's
need
the
to be
wrong place. Yep.
exactly. We need to be at that table and planning ahead and understanding budgets and terms. And you should never be the last person to find out that the business isn't doing well that you're supporting or that they're growing. You don't want to be last second onboarding people. Planning ahead and ordering ahead and supply chain and all those things that you manage. That all comes from, or gets easier from a position of being at that table. So I like that book a lot. I mean, we should definitely. Jen, maybe we'll have to throw that one up. Maybe we should do a suggested reader
It's
list.
Prime Day. Maybe
Yeah.
it's on Amazon. We could all get
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. I like that a lot. No, I think it's definitely just, I think as applicable as it is to you, I think it's even more applicable, right, to people we work with every day. So I love
Oh,
that.
absolutely. And it's not hard to influence others if you are genuinely interested in making them better, right? It's not a hard thing, but you can't be afraid to use your voice and
Agreed.
explain why you're making the suggestion and what the choices are. It's never a one size fits all. It's always, well, if you do this, this could happen. If you do this, this could happen. Which route do you want to go? Do you want to make these changes in 3 months or do you want to make them in 9?
Yep.
And there's the path.
Love it. I know we had whiteboarded a couple different areas that we really could hit on to make sure that this was impactful, and I'm going to start to dive into some of those. But I do want to say for anyone listening, I know we have people on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. There is a Zoom link. If you guys don't have it, you can head over to mspinitiative.com. It'll be on there. You can join instantly. Feel free to ask questions away. We'll try to keep an eye on social media, but it's always, a little bit hard to keep up with at times, especially during the live session. So if you guys have a question, you're burning to have it answered, Zoom is definitely the easiest way. If not, we'll definitely get Brandi's contact info at the end here. Make sure that you guys can connect with her and the Next Level Now team after the fact. But first one up.
I have our Restream page up on my monitor, so I'm tracking those comments.
Perfect.
So if anyone,
Awesome. Thanks,
don't be shy, everybody.
What do you think is the biggest growing challenges that MSPs are facing today? I mean, our industry is going through a crazy amount of growth and change and consolidation and PE money coming in. So what do you think is one of the top issues or the number one issue that they're facing?
The number one issue that we are seeing well, there's a couple. It's not a one and done, right? Because every organization has different strengths and weaknesses. But one of the big ones, especially post-COVID, when everybody got that PPP money or the ERC credit, and that money is now going away, right? So one of the problems that we see is that businesses have too many people for the service they're delivering, and people got used to it. So having to either sell more to be able to support the staff or find other ways. The number one expense in MSPs is staff. It's a professional services firm. Unless you were an early adopter of AI or the technology, you still have people. So we see a lot of overstaffed, especially in the smaller under 15 million IT companies, because they had this money to grow. So they hired the staff to be able to grow. And if the growth hasn't gone the way you thought or had hoped, but the other thing that has happened is utilization and staff performance has also declined from what it used to be pre-COVID.
It's funny you just went into that, because that was actually our question that just came in, was how would you recommend tackling utilization issues? I know this is a major thing. There's a lot of great tools, a lot of great employee tracking tools, a lot of great D-Boy, right? We do a lot of the phone tracking. There's screen time tracking. There's activity tracking. There's Microsoft rolled out really quickly, to their credit, as COVID hit, the reporting on how much your mailbox was being used, routines is being used, and but how do you tackle those issues if they are trending in the wrong direction?
Yeah, the first thing I like to do with any client that has a utilization issue is we developed a utilization calculator that really helps you understand what a proper utilization is for your company. Because back in the day, and when I say back in the day, I'm going back, 6, 7 years, pre-COVID.
Mhm.
It used to be 85, 90% utilization was a really good utilization, and people worked. Now we're seeing I've seen as low as 40%, which is insane because that doesn't help anybody.
It's
And with
painful to hear.
painful, right? It's like a dagger to the heart. But a lot of that is because of offshoring. So what has happened is people doubled down and got twice as many people offshore, but it still affects your utilization in a negative way because
Sure.
you're still paying for the staff. So we developed a utilization calculator that really takes into account meeting time, paid time off, holidays, professional development time, because a lot of those things have gone up since COVID. People want to learn. It's a more virtual environment. People want to be able to have meetings and connect with their peers because they're not in offices, but
Mhm.
that has a ding on utilization. So understanding for each role or position that you have, what is the utilization rate? I'm seeing it more common, 72 to 82%. And it depends on how strict the company is, but it's come down quite a bit. So understanding that is the number one rule. The other thing is to determine how much labor do you need to deliver your service? And that's a harder question to answer, right? It's because it depends on
Mhm.
your mix of what are you delivering? Is it managed services? What does that look? What tools do you have in place? And you can figure that out by analyzing your hours, what people are working on, seeing what tickets are coming in, things of that nature, but really understanding how many techs do you need to deliver how many dollars of managed services, for example, and what level techs do you need? How many engineers?
Sure.
What does that support like? So those are the two things to tackle it, and then don't be afraid to make the difficult decisions.
It's hard, I see it, working with businesses every day, even in our own business. I think when COVID hit, for us, BVoIP has been a remote company from the beginning.
Right.
George's MSP that we grew out of um, struggled really hard in growth because he's sandwiched between a bunch of major metros. And as soon as
Yep.
he'd hire someone, get them a little bit trained up, they'd leave and go to a bigger company for more money.
Yep.
And so for him, he just kept doing that over and over again, got very frustrated, and finally said, you know what, why do they need to be here? The tools have come far enough. They can support
Yep.
90% remotely. If I can get a couple good key people here that can go on site, we can do a lot of the work remote. And started hiring and putting up job recs in secondary cities and did really well. And the added benefit that you didn't even think of at the time was you now have people that are working later and later into the day at no additional costs or weird schedules or anything like that. So
Yep.
everybody's very happy. So when he started BVoIP, it wasn't even a question of where would the office be. But I think for us, what we saw was you saw a lot of people who had never worked remote before all of a sudden jump remote. We've seen this across the industry. I've had so many MSP partners talk to me about this as well. It's so hard. It takes a certain type of person, a certain level of discipline to work from home. And there's a lot of great rules out there, right? Separate your space, make sure you get showered every day, right? Working on your couch in your pajamas is not going to get the work done.
Yep.
But you're seeing a lot of that rubber band effect back into the office. Are you seeing more of that push in the MSP space as well, where people are just starting to say, "Hey, we get it, but at least X% in the office," or
So most of our customers are in a hybrid, right? So they
Yep.
require an in-office as well as do allow for some remote, but it is definitely shifting. And those companies that outsourced offshore or hired offshore are starting to come back to the US. So we're seeing that because of help desk support or things of that nature. But you are right, because one of the other challenges that came out of COVID that you didn't touch on, going remote to coming back, is people still want a path to grow. And a path to
Yep.
grow requires you to gain skills and expertise. And that water cooler talk that you mentioned does not happen as much virtually unless you make it part of your culture, but it will decrease your utilization.
Agreed.
We had another question come in. Someone asked, how should I approach getting meaningful time data per employee without micromanaging for each second? Do you have an average hour per week benchmark? And I think that's one of the hard things. You don't want to micromanage.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, and it depends on the tool you use. If you're a ConnectWise user, like ConnectWise whole thought and theory is all time, on time, all the time. So they want you to be putting in your time data in real time. It streamlines the billing process. It streamlines your utilization conversations, everything. And if you use their scheduling tool for your calendar, it will literally record all the time that people are working on. And really, for the way MSPs are set up today, you have to know what you're spending on your time, or there is an alternative, which is super radical. It goes nothing along what Sleek tells us, so I'll just put it out there. But it's separating out your staff differently. So if you have a managed, and it works well for managed service, that is a fixed fee and a recurring model, recurring revenue model. But if you know those people are working on that, you know what your margin needs to be profitable. Focus on the outcomes, delivering that service. Who cares about the time? Focus on the margin, and your utilization will take care of itself, provided you have the infrastructure to be able to manage that. So there's a couple of ways. And if you don't have a tool like a ConnectWise or a Halo or Autotask, you gotta figure out how to capture that time if you're not gonna be able to do the latter, which is a hard concept to get around the billable hour in the MSP space.
And speaking of margins, what do you think has happened to industry margins, like the key changes and why that's happening?
Yeah, they've gone down about 10%. And a lot, there's multi-factor to that. It's costs of employees have gone up. They went up during COVID like a skyrocket. They are trailing back down, which is good and bad, right? Because inflation is still there, but rates are coming down. But we had that big jump, especially for the lower level folks, not so much the higher level folks, right?
Yep.
So you're getting less value, paying more for them, and value meaning for your customer, right? It's the help desk folks. The other thing is cost of equipment has gone through the roof, along with waiting times. And then with the shift to the cloud, back pre-COVID, organizations weren't all in the cloud. So you could get your cloud solutions a little bit less. Now everyone's in the cloud, so your cloud solutions are a little bit more. So margin dips have come in on all areas of the MSP environment and infrastructure, and then throw in the big slathering of being overstaffed along with the rates, and that's where we see a lot of it.
Makes sense. I think hardware, we've seen goods go up in general. So hardware spiked. Some of that seems to be leveling out. I know on the phone side, we're starting to see some of those get to a better rate again, which is great. But yeah, you add it all together, it's tough.
And I will say access to equipment has gotten easier through COVID. Amazon, Dell always existed, but now you can hop on Amazon and anyone can be a price shopper. And it's important to sell the value that you're providing versus the technology you're trying to put in, because otherwise you're not going to ever make the margin that you want. People will beat you up for it, and you don't want to be working hard for 5 points. That's not going to help
Agreed.
anybody.
Brandi, we've got another question. We have such an
Mhm.
interactive audience today.
Love it.
What if
That's
our
good.
model, I know. What if our model is heavy on projects, seasonal heavy need for labor, but if we fire and hire, there's a lot of time onboarding and training employees to get them caught up to speed.
Yeah, if you know that it's a lot of seasonal, think of a different way to deploy, and there's many different ways to do that. Your staff, you can look at subcontracting through another trusted partner. You could look at trying to find ways to level that out if you know it's seasonal, and it's usually a budgetary reason for the seasonality, or you're working with school districts or things of that nature.
Yep.
But find a way to be able to offer flexible payment arrangements to collect some of that money. The budget runs a whole year. Find a way to collect some of that money a little bit earlier or a little bit later to be able to manage your workforce without the heavy push, and figure out how you can do some of that work in advance other than having to be on location and be prepping for it over time. So it does require a little bit of creativity, because hiring and firing is not the best solution, because you're going to get the riffraff a lot of times, because nobody wants to take a job and then know that they're going to be let go. So
Right.
trying to
Agreed.
find another alternative to diversify your income streams, and you can do that through cash flow if you don't want to diversify your income streams, and be honest with your customers and try and spread it out a little bit.
Agreed. No, I love it. Definitely a tough thing. We have a great client that works with school districts, and that was, exactly, you hit on it for me, because every year I know in the summer is when they want all of their projects done.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all of his clients.
Yeah.
And it's crazy for him to kind of scramble and do all of those. And you have that absolute clock waiting, because everything has to be up, running, and perfect for that first
Yeah.
day of school. And it's tough.
There are ways, though, to manage that, right? Because you can get everything prepped in advance. And a lot of times IT companies aren't the greatest at planning. So I know it's shocking, it's shocking. But if you know that it's coming, you get that contract. You don't get it 2 days before you start. You get your contract sometimes 6 months before it starts. Have the conversation with the school district around your payment terms, and then start developing and doing and beta testing all of the stuff. So when you show up on site, it's on. Do all that pre-work.
There's a great company out of Tampa called EVIT. Shout out to my friend Kelly Green over there. He's a great guy. They have an incredible operation for that. We've been in their office a couple times, and they do a lot of POS and everything else for some of the major fast food chains and restaurant chains out there. And you go in there, and this entire shelf is Margaritaville, and it's all the new POSs for all the Margaritavilles, and they're pre-programmed, and they are all set up for each location, and they're sticky noted and tagged, and the barcodes, and they're all set up ready to go, so they can just put them in a box that all ships up there. They fly an employee up there, they plug them all in, turn them on, make sure nothing was damaged, everything's good, fly back.
You're good.
Yeah,
Right.
so you're right. You can definitely do a lot in advance. I see it in the phone world. If you can pre-order the stuff, you can set up your profile, you can get all that ready to go. There's no reason you couldn't take a little bit of space, an extra cubicle if you have to, and just get everything all set up and ready to go. So when day of, you're doing a lot less troubleshooting. Right.
And it reduces your on-site time so that you can have less people, because then you can just plan and strategize it out, and then work around the cash flow, and then find another industry that you can dip into that's going to augment the school districts. Ski resorts.
There you go.
Beach resorts, you pick it.
Love it. Get yourself a Brandi to understand navigating that cash flow. So the next one that we had up here, you hit on it a little bit earlier. M&A is incredible in our space. I remember when I started at our task in the 2011 timeframe. There wasn't a ton of PE and VC money in our space, and just what a transformation, the 14 years has been, 13 years has been. It's night and day.
Yeah,
It's happening every day. I do miss Joe Panettiere. Used to do the M&A tracker, and
yeah,
he added up, and at the end of the year, there was something like more M&A than there are days in the year. There was like 372 or something like that one year. So I think one of the biggest things we see people driving towards now is that sale. How do I get the most bang for my buck? How do I
yeah,
this has been my baby for years. How do I get the most? How do I
yeah,
prepare myself for that sale? What would you say is the couple pieces of advice or the best piece of advice you could give
yeah.
them if they're starting to think that way?
Yeah, so to get the most bang for your buck, knowing your numbers or hiring someone that understands your numbers to have you set up well in advance is the number one thing you can do to increase your value. So the number one reason valuations are lower than people realize is if your financial house isn't in order, it automatically discredits you, discounts you. They'll look at your service, but if you don't know your numbers or have someone next to you that knows them inside and out, you'll be taken advantage of because they're not going to sort through and sift through your rubble to try and find what you're worth. So that is the number one thing, and make sure that your full house is in order, right? And sometimes that takes patience, but if you want to maximize your value, if you know that's your goal, talk to whoever you work with and set out what does that strategy look like. Okay, do I have the financials set up in such a way that leads my buyer or potential buyers to the path to maximize the value? Do I know what I have? Is my profit or my EBITDA, which is the big term, high enough for what I hope to get? And a lot of small businesses take their money all out instead of leaving their EBITDA in. But there's a thing called add backs that you can do and set it up. But if you can get your EBITDA over $1 million, your multiplier goes up. If you can get it over $2 million, you just gain some more. So recognizing that if you want to sell your business, it's not a short game strategy unless you want to take a discount. If you're going for the maximum, recognizing that it can be a longer game strategy, 2 to 3 years to really set your house in order, double down, work hard, get profitable, get lean, you can do it. But that's what I would say. Make sure you surround yourself with trusted people that are incentivized to maximize for you, not maximize for them. One of the biggest things I've seen is people will hire an expert to come in and they're going to maximize my value and I only have to give them 30%. Well, okay. Not always the best way. Not
Yeah,
always the best way.
couldn't agree
So,
more. I had a great client in the South. I'm not going to go too much into it, but they went into their first peer group meeting right before COVID
okay.
and walked out as if they had just gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson, just absolutely bloodied and frustrated because they went in feeling very, very confident. They thought that things were great in order, and they went out and they had done their first real look at everything,
Yeah.
and the room torn to pieces because they weren't as profitable or as well off as they thought they were. But you touched on the length of time to really put in. I think they were kind of toying around with the idea of acquisition at that point. They went back, they listened to the group, they worked with the group, they worked with their moderator. They actually did implement a very similar service to Next Level Now, and they turned that business around. And it was about 2 to 3 years. So you were spot
Yeah.
on there. They came out, they had a terrific sale. The owner is now very, very happily retired,
Yep.
enjoying his time with his kids and his wife, and the others have all adapted into the new business and are extremely happy. So it was just such a cool thing to see. And I will say it's definitely not an overnight thing. Like most changes in your business, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes how many days to create a habit, right? 60 days. And,
Yep.
with all of that in place, financial cleanliness and all of
Yeah.
that is going to come with a lot of different habits. And you're going to need to give it time. You're going to need to
Yeah.
really lean in on it and pick the right person, pick the person that aligns well with you, but follow with a lot of trust because
Yeah,
it's going to
it's
take it.
true, because at the end of the day, you're trying to change profitability and
Mhm.
business composition, meaning your revenue mix a lot of times, improving your margins, which can involve calling your vendors to get better
Mhm.
payment terms, more creative payment terms. But it also requires you a lot of times to make difficult decisions, which nobody likes to do at all. So
Mhm.
just preparing to make those decisions, because you got to live with it as well until you see that, can can be a hurdle. Probably
Agreed.
the biggest hurdle.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Jen, I think you
Yeah.
were saying something there.
No.
Oh, okay. Perfect. So let's see. We do have a couple more that we had really benchmarked, we had written down here that I thought were great to hit on, and we're keeping an eye on that Q&A. So if you have any more questions, happy to answer them. But so we talked about industry margins. Um, you know, Next one that I'd really like to hit on is MRR versus software sales or project. Our question and our questioner earlier had a lot of heavy project work. How are you breaking that all down? I know that the push has always been go, go, go towards MRR, right, recurring revenue. But at the
Yeah.
same point, project revenue does for a lot of these guys, especially the smaller ones. Exactly, it's paying the
Yep.
bills. It's clearing the payroll. How do you help them unwind some of that, or do you suggest they keep it going? I know I've seen a lot of hybrid
Yeah.
setups where that's kind of the nice pop of cash every
Yeah.
once in a while, and it helps out.
Yeah.
What would you say is best?
I think the hybrid approach is the best, to have some project work as well as the MRR, because the MRR takes care of your making sure that they're safe, the security is good, blah, blah, blah. We'll push that aside. But the project work is when the CTO hat comes on too. Because if you're getting projects, the best way is to say, okay, what's going on in your business? And here's what we're providing you every month. And here's where your goal and your initiative is. We can help you get there. Here's what it's going to take to do it, and then map out that project. And it usually, if you're really doing your job well at that C-suite, it's going to give you projects that could go on for years. And that
Yep.
extra money is value add, because once you implement the project, you can increase your MRR.
Yep.
Because there's more infrastructure to support. And it's not going to go up as high of a value. Like if you put in $100,000 project, your MRR may go up $1,000 a month to support that, but it's growing that MRR. You've become an advisor to your company, and now you have a nice blended mix where you get cash infusions. You're utilizing your engineering team really well, because on the managed services, unless it's big problems coming up, which if they are, then you got a managed service issue that you got to deal with and find. But you're leveling out your workforce better as well. So I like the hybrid approach. I don't think, unless you were able, which I haven't seen this yet, but this would be my perfect dream, you're able to charge a higher fee per month and say, we will take care of everything. We understand the risk. A laptop goes down, don't even worry about it. You got a new one. But this
Yep.
is your fee. You're paying a premium, but you'll never be charged a project. And that's riskier, but also could have more reward. And if you're going to sell, that could add a little bit. It's all recurring revenue, depending on what your contracts look like. So that
For
I
sure.
haven't seen much of that, but that would be my perfect dream as a CFO.
I definitely think that would make the books easy.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, it not
Absolutely.
only that, it helps support customers better, right? Because you're
Yeah.
focused on taking care of them, because there's greater risk if you don't. If you take care of them in that entire approach, depending on the scope, right, that you've
Mhm.
mapped out. But if you say, okay, we're going to take care of all your laptops, you have, most people don't have servers anymore, so we'll ignore that. We'll manage your Microsoft 365 suite. We'll make sure your SharePoints are taken care of. We'll handle triaging when they come in. And we're going to give you 2 assessments a year to make sure nothing has changed. And we'll let you know if there'll be extra costs. That would be a dream, because the goal for an MSP is to take the IT burden off of the businesses. And if they can do that better than anyone else and they don't have to deal with it, win. That's why it's a dream. Less because it's of the books, more of the industry could be disrupted a bit. And I think we need it a little.
I
So
don't
we
hate the
actually
idea
got,
that.
oh, sorry,
Yeah, good. No,
we
go
got,
ahead.
we have had 2 questions come in the past couple of minutes. So the first one
Perfect.
is, what is the average / typical markup you're seeing for resale, hardware and software?
Yeah, so software tends to be somewhere between 20 and 25%. I've seen it as high as 28. And hardware, if people don't, it's funny, some MSPs are afraid to price hardware because it is so shoppable. So I've seen it as low as 5%, which I think is too low. The average we're seeing is between 10 and 15, 18%. I try
Okay.
to shoot for 20 because it's a service you're providing, right? If
Mhm.
you're securing shopping for that hardware and using your cash flow to secure it for that business, it's a service. And if they were to swipe a credit card, they're going to pay 30. So charge
Yep.
them the 20.
Fair.
The second question, sorry, Alex.
No,
Another one
that's
just
great.
came in too as I was saying
Oh
that.
my God, all these questions now. Keep them coming.
So someone asked, how would I calculate that, and this is in quotes, premium cost to include projects that I may not be able to foresee?
Yeah, so it does require you to understand your business, how it ebbs and flows, and how your people perform, right? So it really requires you to know your business and have some historical information on what that's going to look like. But like we just said, the biggest expense is labor, right? So if you know that if you want to deliver $1 million in this model, you want somewhere between 35 and 40% of that to be labor costs. And you have to make sure those people can deliver that $1 million in service. The hardware is your variability, any of the hardware that you may need. But if you know what you're getting into, if you know it's laptops and SharePoint, you sit down with them, do an assessment, and say, what are your growth plans and initiatives over the next 3 years? And you can back into that and blend that cost out, get a longer term contract with a decent exit if you don't deliver, right? Or they don't deliver on their promises to you, right? Because you want it to be a win-win. But you do have to understand your people in the service. But it sounds more difficult and risky than it really is.
I think the biggest thing on there was the historical data, right? If you
Yep.
have 3, 5, 7 years in your business where you can really take that and say, how have we done? And the other thing
Mhm.
is, if you have an absolute killer on your services team, keep them happy, because if that person leaves, it's going to sway that map very, very quickly. but we see the same thing when we measure out a minutes-based phone plan.
Yep.
Take 3, 4, 5 months of phone bills, and let's just make sure there's no surprises. Are they a seasonal business? Well, if we didn't calculate it in, you're going to have a really bad summer. Um, so yeah, I think all that's just very important. But I would love to see that model put into place. I think that would be
Right.
I think it's a differentiator, right? And I think that the customer, instead of oh, great, the keyboard broke, how much is it going to cost me? It's like, no problem.
Yeah.
Just call XYZ IT and,
Yep.
we'll send over a new one. There's
That's
none of
right.
that frustration of an unplanned business expense on their end either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It would be awesome to see that happen, because then you wouldn't have IT companies trying to chase the hour, and you would have outcomes. And that would change the service that businesses would get, because they would want to reach the goals, right? That's a win.
Agreed.
And you'd see that
MSPs.
CTO hat come out a little bit more, which
Mhm.
you can charge more for. That's why it's a premium.
Agreed. MSPs, if you're listening, someone start that and then come back and let us know how it goes.
Yes, please let me know.
so we have another question. And can I just say, I've been on 2 of these a week for the past year, and I don't think we've ever had this many questions. So
Oh,
you
that's
might
great.
have to be a reoccurring guest. But I think
Okay,
this
sign me up.
question goes back to the resale markup one that someone had asked a couple questions ago. Would you eat the cost up front on this all-you-can-eat model and then adjust it on the back end? I'm afraid of getting too negative for a year and then not get it at return at a contract renewal.
Yeah, so you do have to eat it if you price it wrong, but instead of looking at it as a one customer, look at it like a portfolio, right? So you're gonna have some, and you do that already, whether or not people realize it. If they have a managed service contract, if you look at all of your customers, you have some that use your service more than others. You have some that never call you. All you're doing is running their patches and their updates, so you're making more on them. And if you look at the entire portfolio, you can do that. But if someone has told you something about, here's my advice, and there's multiple schools of thought. You go through this assessment, they give you information about your business. You look under the covers where they grant you access to look under the covers, and they've told you where they want to go. After 3-6 months, if the business is not as it is described to have been, or there are differences that led you to price a certain way, other than your staff not able to perform to meet the goals and needs, right? But if it's on the customer side, easy conversation. Hi, how's our service been going? Have you enjoyed it? Have we made it easier for you? Here are a couple discrepancies that we've noticed post onboarding. You can't do it in the first 3 months because you're onboarding and there's a lot of turmoil at that time, but you can say, here's some differences. The price we had given you reflected this information you gave us, and here's what we're seeing. Am I missing something? 9 out of 10 times, you'll be able to adjust that price. I have seen some staggered pricing to get you where you need to, especially if a business is changing faster, for example. That would be one big example why your price wouldn't be good. They said they were going to grow at 20% year over year and they're growing at 50. Then they may say, well, due to cash flow, can we get a staggered? But work as it is in a partnership versus I need to make my money. And the relationship will last longer because that value comes in the longevity that you have with the client, not in the short game. So I hear that it can be scary, but look at it as the portfolio run. And yes, there are ways to come back and just put in your contract. Pricing is based on assessment performed. And if there are business changes, we may come back to reprice. And if they don't accept the price, have an out clause. That's fine, because you don't want to keep work to lose money.
Definitely.
hopefully that answers that.
No, that was terrific. We are getting to the last 5 minutes, so I want to do a couple items before we get into wrap up. One of the first ones I always like to do is, what is the best way for people to contact you?
Yeah, so there's several ways that you can reach out. You can go through our website, which is nextlevelnow.net. And there is a form there or a live chat. You can send emails right there. You can call me directly. Have at it. I'm open and willing to talk to anyone that has questions. And my email is bbonds, BONDS, @nextlevelnow.net. Or you can call on our website. You can hit call and it will likely come right to me. Feel free to do that as well.
Perfect. So Jen hit on it earlier. We had a terrific amount of questions. There's definitely a need for this content. So I think we'll definitely be in touch very soon
Awesome.
for another session. And then also for some of our educational events we do. Love to get you involved. And I think one of the things that we touched on today, we went all over the board, but we went from margins to and that's the best way to do it, right? It's
Yeah.
what are the real problems that are plaguing businesses right now? What would you say is like the last kind of a wrap up or key statement that you could leave out of today? If you had to give one piece of advice to MSPs, what would it be?
Yeah, the biggest advice I think I could say is leverage the strengths of people around you and really do take time to understand how your numbers are influenced by your business. And if you take that time to do that and measure it and stick with it, try not to be willy-nilly with it, but have it match your goals. The sky's the limit. You can make the money you want. You can have the business that you want, but definitely engage with folks that you trust and that you want to work with. And get rid of
Agreed.
bad blood. Bad blood, if it's in your organization, it's toxic.
Yep. Do not disagree. No, I think all of that is phenomenal advice. Look, I really appreciate you coming on. This was great subject. And as we touched on right at the beginning, it's needed. It's heavily needed in our industry, and everyone needs a game plan. Everyone needs what's next. Are you going to hand the business down to your kids? You don't want to hand them a mess. Are you going to hand it off to your employees? Again, you don't want to hand off a mess. Are you planning on selling it? All of those require financial literacy and understanding what is going on in the business and are you heading in the right direction. As I mentioned before, I had that great client who thought that, wow, look at us, we've been growing. They were growing, they were adding new clients and new revenue and all stuff, but financially they had so much to clean up behind the scenes, and it was little stuff they tweaked, but it made such an impact on the business from where they were to where they got to 2 to 3 years later. It changed their lives. So I would love to see that happen to more of our clients. I love hearing those stories. I love watching that happen in real time. Reach out to Brandi and her team. They really are doing some amazing stuff. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been an absolutely wonderful content expert.
Thank you.
No, seriously, our pleasure. And Jen, my wonderful co-host today, appreciate you being on here, keeping everything all wrangled together for us and make sure these go off without a hitch. So thank you. And nice to see you not behind the scenes.
Yes, and everyone who's watching, you can check this episode on our YouTube channel and on Spotify by end of day today. So if you missed it or you have your commute home, put it on, check it out, and we will be back next week.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. See you soon.
Bye-bye.